Welcome, welcome. If you can hear me, if you can hear me in the chat, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Somebody let me know if I got my audio right. Gonna let a couple more people get in here. Let me know if you can hear me. Mic check, mic check. Let's see what we got going on. Got a lot of good news we got to get to today. Let's see. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Let me get everything set up. Then we can go ahead and get started with this breaking news, man. John Wall. 1 second. So we got John Wall and Russell Westbrook traded for each other. Now, listen, man, I don't know about y'all, but to me, this right here was a shocker, but it wasn't a shocker. It was a shocker because of the timing. Like, this kind of just came out of nowhere. I think there was conversations going on between Houston and Washington for a while, and nothing ever really materialized. We kind of heard the rumors for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden, so who do I think made the better move? We're definitely going to get into that. Give me 1 second. We're going to definitely get into that because this right here, like I said, this was a shocker for me because of the timing of it. But at the end of the day, I kind of felt that this trade had to happen because think about it like this. John Wall's coming off of an Achilles injury, right? Where 2 years has been since he's last played. So we're in a situation where John Wall and his contract, it was almost immovable. Until you looked at a situation where Russell Westbrook was kind of disgruntled being in Houston and his contract was so massive that it was very few opportunities out there to be able to trade him for somebody who was, contracts kind of matched up, who was kind of at the same part of their career, and it kind of made sense. We saw the Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook trade, two guys who kind of, not necessarily on their decline, but just not as good as they used to be, right? And I think John Wall just fits into that same category. So it wasn't that surprising, but to answer your question, I think that both teams are winners. I don't think there was a loser in this trade. And I know that may seem like I'm taking an easy route out, but hear me out for a second. The Washington Wizards were in a situation where they couldn't get rid of Beal. He's their franchise player. John Wall was the guy who, if you could trade, you had to trade him. And like I said, it seemed like it was unmovable. Bradley Beal, from everything I'm hearing, because for those who don't know, I'm in the DMV area. So right here in the DC area. So, we hear rumors about Bradley Beal not wanting to play with John Wall. John Wall, who's, great in the community in this area. But at the same time, maybe he wanted to kind of come back and be the man as he was before his injury. And that was kind of they weren't really necessarily meshing in the locker room. So I think John Wall had to go. And I think giving Bradley Beal a legitimate, what's going on, Buckets? Giving Bradley Beal a legitimate second star, somebody who maybe chemistry-wise can fit with them because him and John Wall the timing of it just kind of blew up. I think it made sense for the Wizards. To me, Russell Westbrook is the better player today. In this part of their careers, I think Westbrook is better than John Wall because there's a lot of X factors that we just don't know about John Wall's health. With that said, I like the move for Houston. I don't think that Houston necessarily is going to get worse this season. Keep in mind this. Russell Westbrook, one of the reasons why him and James Harden, as much as they like each other as far as friends off the court, their styles on the court, it just didn't really mesh because Russell Westbrook, since he's been in the NBA, has had the ball in his hand. Even when him and James Harden were playing together back in OKC, he was the primary ball handler. So now that he's back with James Harden, and James Harden has just developed to this mega superstar, it makes it a lot harder for him to want to give up the ball because Harden's the better player at this point. So Russ kind of bumped heads with Harden as far as, he kind of trying to take turns. And we saw Chris Paul was able to do that because, like I said, he's on, kind of the decline of his career. So Chris Paul was able to excel in that role as a secondary option to James Harden. Russell Westbrook just wasn't able to do so. Actually, first of all, can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Can I get a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me? Get a thumbs up. Anybody get a thumbs up? Can you hear me? See your video. Thumbs up, agree with Wizards. Okay, we got a thumbs up. All right, perfect. So, yeah, like I say, at the end of the day, I think that the trade winner of this was, actually, there's a couple winners and a couple losers. So the winners are Russell Westbrook, number one, John Wall. Those two players as individuals, they're winners. Russell Westbrook needed a new start, and he gets that. He goes to the Eastern Conference, which is just a little bit easier than the West out there. So he's going to the East, and Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, they form the best backcourt in the Eastern Conference, without question. That's the best backcourt in the Eastern Conference. And I like some of the other moves that the Washington Wizards did. When you think about Roy Hachimura, who out of Gonzaga, who's developed had a really good rookie season. They brought Bertans back, who's a big shooter who can spread the floor out. They got one of the steals in the draft in Denny Avicii, the gentleman from Israel, who supposedly I thought he was a top 5 pick in the draft, but somehow he fell down to number 9 to the Wizards. So I like the moves that the Washington Wizards made in the offseason. And now getting Russell Westbrook, to me, they're a playoff lock. They were on a bubble for me, but they're a playoff lock right now. They're going to one of those teams, as far as those top 6 teams that I initially had, which we'll get to in some of my upcoming videos. They jump into that as a playoff lock. Now, going back to the West Coast, James Harden and the Houston Rockets, I think this is a win because John Wall coming off this injury, John Wall understands this isn't his team. See, it was going to be a conflict between him and Bradley Beal in Washington about whose team it was. But at the end of the day, I don't think that John Wall's going to have any concern about whose team it is. This is James Harden's team, number 1. Number 2, I think that John Wall is a better shooter than Russell Westbrook. So even though John Wall is not an elite shooter, he's not a Dame Lillard, he's not a Steph Curry, he's a better shooter. And I think his jumper is continuing to be a work in progress, but he's a better shooter than Russell Westbrook. So he can play more off the ball than Russ could with James Harden. So I like that. Also, with the other moves that the Houston Rockets did in the offseason, I love that moves as well. Bringing in Christian Wood, I like that move. He's a very underrated pickup that I really like as a stretch big man that can defend. He can go inside, outside. I love that. And then we got to keep in mind, Boogie Cousins is with the Houston Rockets. Back to Kentucky. John Wall and Boogie Cousins, they play college ball together at Kentucky University. So putting those two back together, they always, here in D.C., we always wanted to see, could Boogie Cousins, when he was healthy, could he come to Washington to team up with John Wall? It never happened. Now, unfortunately, both of these guys are coming off of injuries, but hey, listen, they're trying to resurrect their career. Hey, you got James Harden to kind of help you, kind of lead the way to help you do that. So I like their front court. Small ball is done. They're done with that. They kept P.J. Tucker. Even though they got rid of Robert Covington, they kept P.J. Tucker. They've still got Eric Gordon coming off the bench. So at the end of the day, I like what Houston did. I think Houston is also a lock for the playoffs. Because remember, the West is loaded. Is this my first stream? No, this actually is not my first stream, Fetty Wap Go, excuse me. This is not my first stream. What I've done is I've opened it up to everybody so that we can get everybody to participate in the streams. At first, I kind of made it with the, kind of the members only, but I wanted to open it up because we got some breaking news and the NBA is just rolling with news after news. So I wanted to definitely keep that out there. Culture says, I hope Wall plays a more traditional point guard role. That's what he did. Like, John Wall's a traditional point guard in the sense that John Wall is a pass-first player. So you got him being a pass-first, score-second guy who will now have James Harden, who's a score first, score second, and then pass third type of mentality. So those two, I think, will fit together well. Now, I got to talk about my loser, too. We'll come back to these, but the biggest loser out of this trade is the Brooklyn Nets. Without question, the Brooklyn Nets are the biggest loser because everybody had been talking about Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving getting James Harden. Now, James Harden also, even though I think Russell Westbrook and John Wall are also biggest winners, James Harden is a big loser in this as well because he wants out of Houston. He wants to go to Brooklyn. Tillman Fertitta, the owner of the Rockets, he's not budging. They already kind of letting the news come out there, filter out there that they're not trading him before the season starts. Now, potentially at the NBA trade deadline, possibly. But I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think they're going to even trade him then. James Harden, you cannot get equal value for James Harden. Bottom line, you're going to get 75 cents on the dollar, if not 50 cents on the dollar, trying to trade away James Harden. So he knows that. He doesn't want his franchise to become a lottery team. So getting John Wall, this is the key with John Wall. If John Wall is healthy, you're getting an all-star point guard. Now, he's not a superstar, but he can still give you 18 points, maybe 7, 8, 9 assists, right? I think he can still, coming off this Achilles injury, can still be an 18-8, 18-9 guy. You put that with James Harden and the big men that they have around him with Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins, if those guys can stay healthy, this Houston Rockets team could be, they can make some noise in the Western Conference. They're not a contender. They are not a championship contender, but they can make some noise. Buckets says, where does Russ and Bill rank among the NBA duos? Good question. Russ and Bill, like I said before, they are definitely the best backcourt in the Eastern Conference. But as far as duos overall, the number one duo, as we know, is LeBron and Anthony Davis. Like that should be without question. Then you got guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving that I will put over them. Even Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I will put over them. But if unfortunately Klay Thompson's hurt, so that kind of knocks that Warrior duo down. But you never know. Steph Curry, and it could potentially, I would even say a Steph Curry, Draymond Green, I would still take that duo, or even a Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, however you want to look at, say whoever the second best players for the Golden State Warriors, I would take that duo over this Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. But I would definitely say hands down top 10. Like, to me, they're top 10, because you got to think, you still got Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Like, it's so many great duos. Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. Now we got Chris Paul and Devin Booker. It's so many great duos, man. That's one thing I love about the NBA right now, is that you have so many great duos. But I would definitely say that Beal and Westbrook can be top 10, but they're not in that elite levels, top 3, top 5. They're not there yet. But that was a good question on mine. Let's see. We got another. Let's see. Russell Westbrook and John Wall are basically the same type of players with horrible contracts. I don't think anybody won this trade. Well, think about it like this, Zay. Think about it like this. Both teams won because there was a situation where you had to get rid of them. You had to get rid of Wall, right? Because Bradley Beal started making it publicly known he wanted Wall gone. Harden didn't want to have Russ there. He wanted to play with, if he had a choice, the word is he wanted to play with Wall over Russ. So you have two stars that wanted both of their point guards gone. So the fact that they got rid of point guards, even though the styles and the system, the style of play between between Russell Westbrook and John Wall are similar. Just swapping them in a situation where now both of them get fresh starts. This is the first time John Wall's ever played outside of Washington, D.C. in the NBA. Russell Westbrook finally gets to go to the Eastern Conference. And so now we get to see how can these Eastern Conference guards handle Russell Beast Mode Westbrook. That's going to be interesting to see. Because like I say, to me, he's if he's up there with Kyrie Irving as far as being the best point guard in the Eastern Conference. Like, the East now the East got a little bit deeper. We'll say it like that. The East has got a little bit deeper as far as dynamic duos. Remember, Bradley Beal was a 30-point per game scorer last year. He's no slouch. Bradley Beal's the first player in NBA history to average 30 points and didn't make an All-Star team or an All-NBA team. So it's some talent over there, man. Let's see what we got next. We say, what are the best backcourts in the East? Well, I think you got to look at just start right from the top with the Brooklyn Nets. When you got Kyrie Irving over there, you got to look at Kyrie Irving, and I would say a Karis LeVert. To me, that's one of the best backcourts in the Eastern Conference. I still will put Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal as the number one, but you got to put Brooklyn there. Who else you got over there? I think if Oladipo can get healthy and stay healthy, him and Malcolm Brogdon is a really good backcourt. We also got to consider Kemba Walker and whether that's a Jaylen Brown. And that backcourt, I like Boston's backcourt as well. So I think, like I said, the Washington Wizards backcourt is definitely one of the best, if not the best, in the Eastern Conference. Let's see. Jamel says it's weird because Westbrook is the better player in the trade, but Wall is the better fit. The key is Houston new additions in the front court. I agree 100% with you. Those additions of Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins. Remember, the reason they got rid of Clint Capella was because Clint Capella, even though he's a better defender than either one of those guys, he's not a floor spacer. So he was clogging up the paint for Russell Westbrook. Him and James Harden played good in that pick and roll, but Russell Westbrook, the flows clogged for him. Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins have that ability where now both of these guys can shoot from the outside. So you can play inside, outside, high, low with these two guys, and they can play pick and roll, pick and pop. Like, it opens the floor up for a John Wall who still loves to attack and a James Harden. So I do like the move, and I think those big court men or those front court men will definitely help Houston to be one of those top 6 teams in the Western Conference. Let's see. We got another question. Thoughts on the Bucks? We'll get to the Bucks a little bit later because I want to stay focused on this big trade fade a while. But I appreciate that question. See, Muhammad Bilal says, "What if the Rockets wait out until Giannis?" Okay, put a deal in with Harden. Is that a possibility? Trading James Harden for Giannis would make so much sense. That would make so much sense, actually, if you think about it from the Houston Rockets standpoint, because James Harden wants to go. And the unfortunate part about James Harden wanting to go is that unless a team really wows the Houston Rockets, they don't have to trade him. They literally don't have to trade him. So if they're able to get Giannis back, they would gladly give up James Harden. And I think Harden going to Milwaukee would not be his top destination, but there's still some pieces over there that he could potentially win with, or play with, where they could still be a winning team. But I know where he wants to go. So should Houston wait it out? I think they should. I mean, you have nothing to lose. Giannis has until December 21st to be able to decide if he's going to sign that extension. So the season starts December 22nd. So you will know before the season starts if Giannis is committing long-term or if he's going to play it out and see what happens next year. And at the end of the day, like I say, Milwaukee, if they start faltering throughout the season or Houston starts faltering, maybe a trade like that does come about. So we have to see how that works out. Let's see what we got. Who's next? Russell should have kept his mouth shut. I think he had the Wizards' mind. Yeah. Raptors got a good backcourt East. That's true. The Raptors definitely have a good backcourt with Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet. I love that as well. What seed do I have the Wizards at this year? Great question, Jamel. The seed I got the Wizards at, man, right now, to me, there's a top six, right? Brooklyn, Philly, Boston, Miami, Toronto. Who's the other one? I left somebody off. Miami, Philly. Oh, and the Brooklyn Nets. So that's the top six. So I think 7, and it's interesting because remember, we got the play-in tournament this year. So 7 through 10 are going to be competing for that playoff, those last 2 playoff seeds, right, in the play-in tournament. I got the Wizards in that 7 to 10 range fighting. I think from a regular season standpoint, they should be able to be at least the 8th seed. So 7th seed, I could definitely see happening. The 8th seed, like I said, I think that's probably the worst case that they'll do during the regular season. Will they make the playoffs? That's going to be dependent on that play-in tournament because you got teams like the Indiana Pacers that I put in that 7 to 10 range. You got the revised Atlanta Hawks, who I think a lot of people sleep on Atlanta Hawks. You got them in there. The Orlando Magic, who've been in the playoffs the last couple of years, are going to be in that mix as well. So those 4 teams right there are probably going to be in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range, and they're going to be fighting for those last 2 playoff spots. Let's see, who have a better season, the Rockets or the Wizards? Oh, hands down, without question, the Rockets. Now, even though I think the Wizards are winners in this trade because they got the better player of the two, the rest of the roster, you got to consider the rest of the roster. First of all, Harden is better than Bradley Beal, and the rest of the roster, when you talk about Eric Gordon, DeMarcus Cousins, Christian Wood, PJ Tucker, and the other guys that the Houston Rockets have, compared to the rest of the Wizards roster, it doesn't really compare that much. So I definitely like the Houston Rockets team better, even though I think the Wizards got the better player, and I think the Rockets will have the better record throughout the season. But that doesn't mean the Wizards lost in this. Remember, to me, the biggest loser in this was James Harden as an individual, and the biggest team loser was the Brooklyn Nets. Let's see, I still don't see the Wizards making the playoffs. Too much competition in the East. Listen, Muhammad, that could be true, man. The reality is the East is, for once in a long time, a very long time, we can legitimately say there should be 8 teams in the Eastern Conference that have a winning record. Like, it's been a while since every team that made the playoff had a winning record. So I think this year right here, I think you're going to see that because, like I say, think about this. The Indiana Pacers, who still have Victor Oladipo, Miles Turner, Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon, like, they're going to be in that 7 to 8 range. That's when you know how much talent. The Detroit Pistons with Blake Griffin could be an 11th to 12th seed. You know, the Charlotte Hornets, who just got Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball, could be a 13th seed. You know, so it's so much talent in the Eastern Conference that it is going to be tough for them, man. See, the Wizards win this trade if Harden leaves Houston. The Wizards win the trade if Harden leaves Houston. Well, I can't necessarily say that because it depends on what they get back for Harden. Because Harden's not just going to leave. Remember, he's under contract. So depending on what they get back for James Harden is going to determine if Houston is truly a winner or loser out of this. Because if Houston goes from being in the top 5 seed, which they were last year, conference finals a couple years ago, and then they fall to a lottery team based on the pieces that they have after trading Harden, then I don't necessarily know. You see what I'm saying? So we gotta wait and see that. Do I think the Harden's gonna leave Houston? Will Kim, once again, he's under contract. He can't just leave. He's got to be traded, and that's why even though he's supposedly demanding to go to Brooklyn, that's not his choice. See, if he forces it too much. If Harden forces this too much, keep in mind, they could trade him for the best package that benefits the Houston Rockets. And that could be sending him to Charlotte. It could be sending him to Chicago. It could be sending him to Utah, someplace he may not even want to go. So Houston's going to do what's in the best interest for them, which may not be in the best interest of Harden. So Harden's got to kind of play it cool to kind of keep that relationship and those channels of communication open. Let's see, another question said, do you think Westbrook and Beal are going to play well together? I do. I'm going to tell you why I think the Westbrook-Beal fits. Because first of all, Beal is used to playing with a ball dominant point guard. We saw him with John Wall. And Russell Westbrook is a more ball dominant point guard. But think about this. Bradley Beal, this is his team. Like, Russ is not going to come in and try to take over. And I don't think, because think about when Russ came to Houston, Russ didn't come over to try to take over. Russ plays second fiddle to James Harden. He didn't necessarily like it, but he plays second fiddle to Harden. But Harden is more of a ball-dominant player. That's not Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's not a point guard, or his usage rate is nowhere near as high as someone like James Harden. So Russ is going to come over and have the ball in his hand, and now he's got elite shooters. Listen, Bertans can shoot. You've got what's my guy's name? I have the brain fart right now. But Bradley Beal, Bertans, some of these other guys, Roy Hachimura, some of these guys, they got shooters over there that can open this floor up for Russell Westbrook. Even a guy like Thomas Bryant, the big man for the Wizards, he's able to kind of, be a floor spacer to some extent, right? So I think that the Beal-Russell Westbrook duo, I think it's going to be good. I think, like I say, the Wizards were a borderline playoff team for me. I think they're locked for the playoffs right now. Let's see. I think the Wizards, this is, let's see. There was another question that I thought somebody said. What do you think, this is Discord Blast, says, what do you think Wall will look like when he comes back? Very good question, Discord. Well, we saw some footage recently of John Wall and James Harden playing kind of like pickup ball, street, not necessarily street ball, but kind of pickup ball during the offseason. And I'm going to tell you, listen, it's hard to judge players on pickup ball, right? Because it's not really a lot of defense being played out there. It's no real organization out there, so it's hard. But one thing I do love is John Wall was hitting in-rhythm jump shots. Listen, that's been his biggest weakness in his entire career was jumpers. I think John Wall is going to actually surprise. I'll be the first to say this. I think he's going to even surprise me, because I was one of those people that, if I'm being 100% honest, was a little down on what I thought he would be coming back, because he never had a consistent jump shot. And he relied so much on his athleticism. I felt that coming off an Achilles injury, which is one of the worst injuries an athlete, a super athlete can have, that I didn't think he would be close to back to what he was. But if he's been working on that jumper like it appears he has, and he's able to be a consistent jump shooter, he'll never be Steph, he'll never be Dame Lillard, he'll never be one of those shooters. But if he can make the defense respect him, he's going to always have a quick first step. And his handle's always going to be tight. He's got a pass-first mentality, and he's playing with a superstar who's going to attract a lot of attention, more attention than he's ever had on any teammate from years past. So I think the Wall, if he's able to continue to look like what I've seen in these offseason workouts, he actually could be pretty good, man. Let's see, we got another question from Baruch, I believe that is. What do you think of what the Rockets were able to do considering their situation just 2 weeks ago? Well, like I said, I think the Rockets, to me, are a lock for the playoffs. I think they're in a situation where they are going to be better this year because they've got legit big men. Getting Christian Wood, see, a lot of people may not understand who Christian Wood is, because he spent a lot of time with the Detroit Pistons on a lottery team. Christian Wood can ball. Right, let's be very honest. Christian Wood can ball. DeMarcus Cousins, as everybody knows, I'm a Laker fan. When the Lakers picked up DeMarcus Cousins last year, I thought we got him a steal. DeMarcus Cousins, injury's the only thing that's stopping him. The skill is not going to go away. The talent's not going to go. His athleticism is definitely not what it used to be. But a big man who's as big as he is, who can pass, he can shoot, he's got size to be able to post up on the block. Now, defensively, he's not going to give you what you would want from a Clint Capella or a DeAndre Jordan, those types of big men. But from an offensive standpoint, the Houston Rockets offense just got much better. Much better, because I think John Wall's going to be a more efficient scorer than Russell Westbrook. I think John Wall is a better facilitator than Russell Westbrook. So I think his fit with James Harden is going to be better. And then I think that the big guys and their versatility is going to open this thing up. I like the Rockets being better than they were last year, but the West is so tough that the seeding may not change much, even though they'll be a better team, if that makes sense to you. Let's see, Ademi. I hope I said that right. Forgive me. Everybody got to forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your names. Bear with me. But I believe it's Ademi. Besides Wall and Bill, who would have to step up for the Wizards to have a successful season? I think the name to watch for is Roy Hachimura. From the big man, he's a versatile forward from Gonzaga. He had a really good rookie season. He's a young guy who's continued to develop. He's actually. Remember, I think Brandon Clark, I believe his name, that played with him, that did really well, right? he kind of went under the radar, but he had an amazing rookie season. So I think his ability as as the big, because he's going to play that that power forward role. Between him or Bertans, one of those two guys I think is going to take that step, and I think the talent is more so favored toward Roy than it is Bertans, even though Bertans is a better shooter. I think Roy's got some talent over there, so I think he could be that third leading scorer, that third option behind a Westbrook and a Bradley Beal. So that's the guy I'll be looking for. See, Coulter Christensen says, I think if the Wizards can get a solid role guy, they can play some solid D at the 3 or the 4. They can definitely make the 6 7 seed. That's Roy. I think that's the guy that you're thinking about. He has to continue to develop on the defensive side, but I think he could be that versatile forward that they're looking for. Like I say, from a defensive standpoint, Thomas Bryant, he's probably going to be their best upfront defender, front court defender. But don't sleep on Roy. I think he's got the defensive potential, but he's got to continue get stronger. He's got to continue to work on the fundamentals defensively. But I think he can fill that role from what you're looking for. Zay Rich says, I feel like the Wizards had to choose between Beal or Wall, and they made the right decision. I think Beal is without question, Zay. Listen, without question, it really is not even up for debate on did they make the right choice between Beal or Wall. Beal's healthier. Beal's better. And the contract for Wall was just ridiculous, right? I mean, they paid him for what he had done, but then when he got injured, he's just not worth that contract. So to get anybody to take him was a blessing in disguise. And they got the better player back of the trade. That very rarely happens when you trade a superstar, number one. Trade a star, and then you trade away the star with the bad contract, and then you trade a star with the bad contract who's coming off of injury for 2 years. Like, the fact that they got the better player to trade is an absolute steal for them. So, absolutely, they made the right choice. Yeah, the contract was terrible. Let's see. Discord Blast says, if you were the Rockets, would you have blown up and continue to try? Listen, this is the thing. That's a great question, Discord. That's a very good question. I always say you don't want to be stuck in the middle. You either want to be really good or really bad. However, the Rockets last year, to me, were, if they had, I think, running into the Lakers in the second round was their detriment, right? When they went small ball, I thought that gave them the best chance to win a championship if they ran into anybody other than the Lakers. And of course, they ran into the Lakers in the second round and just had no answer for all that size. This Rockets team is not going to win a championship. So you might say, well, if the Rockets can't win a championship, then why don't you just blow it up and get all the draft picks you can get and try to start from scratch? Because James Harden's still in his prime, and the chance of you getting another James Harden is just so unlikely. And then the fact for you being able to hit a restart with a new GM, a new coach. Before we get rid of Harden, let's try something different. Let's get rid of the small ball, which didn't work. Let's try to play big boy ball again, still try to open the floor up, and let's keep Harden. Let's try to bring in a different second star. And remember, they've tried Dwight Howard as the second star. They've tried Chris Paul. They've tried Russell Westbrook. So they keep trying, because once you blow this thing up, it's going to be years before you get back to this point. Maybe decades. I mean, we saw the Houston 95 was their last championship. It took them almost 20 years before they got back to being even in the conference finals again when they had Chris Paul and James Harden. And think about that. The best success that they had was pairing Harden with a pass-first point guard. So that's what they're trying to do with John Wall, who's a more athletic version of Chris Paul. Now, he's not the floor general that Chris Paul is, but I think they're trying to duplicate that model as much as possible. And like I say, getting John Wall, I think, is a better fit with Harden, even though he's not the better player between him and Russ. Raptor says, do you think the Rockets did this trade? Hold up. Do you think the Rockets did this trade to go to the last? Hold on, what are you saying? Do you think the Rockets did this trade to try to go one last chance? Absolutely. Especially signing Cousins who wouldn't long term. Absolutely. That's what I was just saying. I think they want to try it with this new look lineup, new management, new coaching style, and see what happens. I mean, listen, they had to get bigger because the Lakers are the litmus test, right? The Lakers are the litmus test that if you're going to win a championship, you got to play big. They proved that to everybody. So they doubled down. They went and got Christian Wood, who I think is their best big man, and then they went and got DeMarcus Cousins, who potentially could be their best big man if he's healthy. But those two together, I love them. I love that combination. And so we'll see how they fit, because like I said, they still got PJ Tucker, who spent a lot of time at the 4 or 5 spot, but now you can kind of slide him over to the 3 so he can guard the LeBron James. He can guard the Kawhi Leonards, and you don't have to put him making him trying to guard the Anthony Davis, which was just playing him out of position. Let's see, Jamel says the Wizards needed a pass-first point guard. I feel like Westbrook's style of play is gonna get on Bill's nerves. Well, let's think about that though, Jamel. Russell Westbrook has led the league in assists many times. Russell Westbrook passes the ball. Now he's a score first mentality, but he has the ball so much in his hands that he's gonna get past the guys. And let's not forget, he's played with a Kevin Durant. He's played with the James Harden, and we saw him. Paul George. Each one of those three guys that he played with that were better scorers than him, he had no problem deferring to all of those guys. Paul George's best season, when he was number third in the MVP voting, was playing alongside Russell Westbrook. Kevin Durant, when he won his MVP, that was playing alongside of Russell Westbrook. James Harden, even though they didn't necessarily mesh, once they got rid of Clint Capella to open it up, Russell Westbrook's numbers went up. And so the problem was the season stopped when they were just getting going after making that trade, so we never got to see a big sample size. And then when we got to the playoffs, like I said, they ran into the Lakers in the second round, and just that was a wrap for them. But I don't want to necessarily throw dirt on Russell's name too soon, because he's still a star. He's still one of the most athletic, if not the most athletic point guard in the game. So I don't want to necessarily do that too much, because, like I said, Bradley Beal is a bona fide scorer, and I don't think Russell Westbrook's going to have any issue passing it to a bona fide scorer, because we've seen him do it literally time after time after time. So I think Russ could be one of those guys who's competing with the LeBron Jameses, the Luka Doncic for leading the NBA in assists this season. Don't be surprised. So I think he will pass. I think that duo is going to actually work, man. Let's see. Atmosphere, I believe that is. Thoughts on bread like the food. Thoughts on bread like the food. Yes. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Lotto Shardies, I believe. How good will Cousins be for the Rockets? It's a good question. How good will Cousins be? I don't know how good he's going to be, because it's going to be dependent on his health. But let's just say, let's think positive. And let's say he is healthy. I think he could be really good. I don't think he's going to ever get back to the superstar DeMarcus Cousins when he was the best center in the league. I don't think he'll ever get back to being even an all-star big man. I don't think we'll see that Cousins. But let's not forget, the last time we saw him on the court with the Golden State Warriors during the regular season, he was averaging 16 points and 8 rebounds. If he's able to give them, let's say 15 and 7. Let's just say he gives them 15 and 7, 15 and 6, 14 and 6, something like that. That's solid numbers from a big man who may not even be their best big man next year, because Christian Wood is a very slept-on, young, up-and-coming big man who could average more points, more rebounds, more blocks than even what DeMarcus Cousins does. So that duo right there, I think they'll play well together. So hopefully I answered your question there about how good Cousins could be next year. Baruch says, what do you think is the ceiling and floor of both teams? Great question. I think the floor is lottery. Like, I mean, if you don't make the playoffs with two, both teams got two stars. John Wall's trying to get back to being a star, but I think he could potentially still do that. Playoffs. I think that being a playoff team, best the ceiling, in all honesty, for the Houston Rockets is a top 4 seed. That's the ceiling for the Rockets. Top 4 seed, maybe somehow they sneak around and get into the Western Conference Finals. It's got to be matchup based. That's the ceiling for the Rockets. Ceiling for the Wizards, making the playoffs, being 7th seed, I think is probably the best case scenario for the Wizards, and winning a game or two in the playoffs. I think that's probably the best case scenario for the Wizards. Let's see, if Harden does leave Houston, besides the Nets, what would be the best place for him to go? Great question, and I think it's very clear. I think it's the top 2 choices that we've heard. I think the Philadelphia 76ers. Think about this. If Philadelphia trades away Ben Simmons, because you're not going to get James Harden without giving up legitimate players. If you put James Harden and Joel Embiid together, is that not the best duo, or at least the second best duo in the entire Eastern Conference? It would be up there with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving as far as the best duo. You got an inside, outside. They can play pick and roll, pick and pop. I mean, Joel Embiid can kind of make up for the deficiencies that James Harden has on the defensive end, even though Harden's been improving. So I think Philly is that option, because even as a third option, you would still have Tobias Harris. They would have Seth Curry, depending on what the package is, who else they send, but potentially you could have Seth Curry as well, Danny Green over there, and they got Dwight Howard, so if you're beating Dwight Howard and Harden back up for the second time, but hey, I think that having those legit big men to play defense behind Harden, I like that, having a Danny Green to be able to play beside him so he doesn't have to guard the other team's best defender. I think Philly would be honestly, I think the most realistic possibility is not Brooklyn. I think the most realistic possibility is the Philadelphia 76ers, and I think that would probably be the best fit for him also. Daniel House is a good small forward. He actually is. And I haven't mentioned his name, But House is definitely somebody that the Houston Rockets, he probably come off the bench, but he definitely, I mean, he's solid. He's solid. I think he'll help them with being a 3-and-D wing that can help them out. Like I said, now that they got rid of Covington, I think he'll be able to kind of come off the bench and play in that kind of versatile forward role. Because I'm sure you'll see some times where they're going to go small, where maybe DeMarcus Cousins comes out, they switch Christian Wood over to the 4, maybe put to the 5, slide a Danny House maybe over to the 4. So you can kind of definitely see some small lineups that they'll be able to play. But I think a traditional lineup, he'll probably want to coming off the bench. Let's see, Owen Kwasinski says, do you think the Rockets should consider bringing Cousins off the bench? Interesting. A lot of Christian Wood's success came when he was playing center after Drummond was traded. I think the answer is no. And I think the reason you don't want to do it is not from a talent perspective. You want DeMarcus Cousins to buy in. You want him to buy. He's one of those guys. He's got to be locked in mentally. And I think you want to give him that opportunity, not to get back to being a star or anything, but give him the opportunity to at least be a starter. You know what I'm saying? Somebody, like, he's fallen so far from a contractual standpoint, from just, on the court standpoint, that you want him locked in. Let him be that starting big man. And Christian Wood, I think, can play at the 4. Now, you don't have to play DeMarcus Cousins 35, 40 minutes. So the minutes when he's not in there, Christian Wood can slide over to that 5 and spend a lot of time at the 5 spot, as we were just discussing. But I would definitely start DeMarcus Cousins from a psychological standpoint, where you want him to be engaged from the beginning. You want him to know that, you want him to believe that he's an integral part of the success this team's going to have, and not just somebody who's going to come off the bench to relieve a younger guy. So if that kind of makes sense for you. Let's see what we got. Who's next? Let's see. Raptor says, I can see House being the 6th man of the year candidate if he plays off the bench. I think he will come off the bench. I don't know if he's going to be a 6th man of the year candidate. I don't know if he'll have that kind of opportunity. Because think about this. Like Houston, you've got Wall, you've got Harden, you've got Christian Wood, and DeMarcus Cousins. Those are going to probably be your top 4 score, and Gordon. So Gordon's probably going to be their sixth, not probably, he'll be their 6th man. So I think House could be that 7th man. So I don't think he'll be in the 6th man of the year running, but he will be a critical piece of that team's success, though. Let's see. H-Town Slim says, I don't want Gordon to start at the small 4. He's too small for me. I agree. He shouldn't start. Gordon should be that 6th man, as we were just saying, that where if you have John Wall, if you have a James Harden, then you could put PJ Tucker at the 3 with Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins. Now you got defense, you got size, but all of those guys can shoot. And so now Harden can play pick and roll. He can go isolation. You can put PJ Tucker in the corner. You can have Christian Wood or DeMarcus Cousins in the other corner, one at the wing. John Wall playing off the ball sometimes, on the ball. Like, you open that floor up for James Harden to be able to penetrate and put pressure on the defense. And so I agree. You want Gordon coming off the bench as the first man to relieve, whether that's a PJ Tucker or John Wall, somebody like that. Let's see. Colter Christensen says, do you believe Wood can come out this year and be the MIP? I do think that. I think that's a good prediction for him. I like his talent. A lot of people don't know about him, but I love his talent. I think he could be in the MIP running for sure. Especially, like I say, I think he's their best. I think he's their best big man. So if he ends up being, let's say, kind of being that 3rd leading scorer, or potentially even a 2nd scorer, if John Wall's not really ready to be an 18, 20 point per game scorer, Christian Wood could be a 16, 17, 18 point per game guy. And like I said, with him a Harden running pick and roll, pick and pop, he could be an MIP candidate. That's a good prediction there. Let's see. You've got Jao Moriam says, came in late, Houston straight, Rob Washington, mark my words. Listen, bro, I'm not. That's true. You made a good point. They also got a 1st round pick out of that. That is a very good point. I forgot to mention that as well. So Houston definitely, even though they didn't get the better player out the trade, they did get a 1st round pick. I think it's a protected 1st round pick. So we got to see what those provisions are. But listen, John Wall fits with James Harden better. There's no question about that. So they definitely got the better fit for their team. But I'm not going to say they got a steal. What was your phrase? You said that they robbed Washington. I'm not going to say that, because there's still a lot of unknown. John Wall hasn't played in 2 years. He's coming off of an Achilles injury. Now, like I said, we've seen him in some practice, some pickup runs. So we got to see, how can he maintain what we've seen in his offseason in NBA level competition for a 72-game season and then the playoffs. And if he can, then potentially they did become the biggest winners. But I don't think Washington is a loser out of this, because once again, the team who typically gets the better player in the trade, they actually win the trade. Let's see, we got any more questions? He says a 2023 protected 1st round pick. Yeah, so like I said, anytime you can get a 1st round pick, protected or not, it's a great asset to have. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was definitely a good move there. He said, "Who's the Rockets head coach? Wonder what the offense will look like." What's his name? What's his name? I want to say Silas is his name. I think no, that's not Silas. That's not Paul Silas. I can't remember the Rockets. Steven Silas. That's Steven Silas, right? And to be honest with you, we don't. There's no real head coaching. There's no large resume. That's the word I'm referring. There's no large resume on him to be able to determine what kind of system they're going to run. But I can kind of allude to what kind of system they're going to run. It's going to be the James Harden system. It's going to be put the ball in Harden's hand, put the ball in Wall's hand, and spread the court. That's what you can pretty much see what they're going to do. It's going to be similar to a like a 5-out offense that you see the Milwaukee Bucks running, where it's put the ball in your playmakers' hands and put all those bigs on the perimeter. Now there's going to be times where if you want to have a big kind of in the middle setting a screen where you run a pick and pop and pick and roll, you could do that. But it's not going to be a lot of DeMarcus Cousins on that block posting up or Christian Wood on that block posting up. They're going to have a lot of motion offense. It's going to be a lot of pick and roll, but more so I think you'll see a lot of 5-out offense as well. Let's see. Houston also got Mason Jones from Arkansas. He has 22. Mason Jones is not going to. He's not going to be a big factor this year. When you've got Eric Gordon, when you've got James Harden, John Wall, PJ Tucker, Christian Wood, DeMarcus Cousins, when you got all of this talent, Daniel House, he's not. He may down the stretch turn into what you're saying, but he's not going to be a big factor this year though. Do I script my videos? So it's a great question. So what I kind of do is I try to figure out a topic that I'm going to discuss and then kind of try to have some bullet points that I want to kind of focus on because I want to keep the time limit. See, like with these lives, I can just go on and on and on because you all are engaging with talking, asking questions. But with the videos, I want to kind of keep those structured to where they're roughly around like 15 minutes. I try not to have them too long. And so I want to have like bullet points that I'm kind of thinking of so that I can kind of stay on topic so I don't get to rambling. Because as you all see, man, I get to rambling. The video will be 30 minutes. I look up and then I'm sitting there trying to edit it all down. So good question. What I do for a living? I'm a ballaholic, baby. That's what I do. We ball all day long. That's what we do, man. He says, I just hope Silas will make adjustments. Dan and Tony never made adjustments. Listen, Dan Tony is a good coach, right? He's a good coach. But the issue is that he's an offensive-minded coach. He needed he needed a defensive coordinator. Actually, I can't remember the coach's name, but when Chris Paul was there, they had a defensive coach. His name is slipping me, but after the Chris Paul situation, that coach went away, and then I think it was maybe a year he took off, and then they wound up trying to bring him back. That's what D'Antoni needs, is that he needs a defensive-minded coach to kind of pick up on this defense scheme because he has no idea about playing that side of the basketball court. So it's interesting. How old am I? I'm 37. Actually, just turned 37 in April. So I know I'm young. You see the baby face. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think I'm gonna grow up my beard. But yeah, I'm 37 though, man. Even all this gray you see coming in here. I'm still a young lad. Let's see. Any more questions about this Houston Rockets? Washington Wizards. Oh, let me say this too. The Jeff Bzdelik. That's it, right? Great job, H-Town. Jeff Bzdelik. That was the defensive coordinator's, or the defensive coach, or defensive-minded coach that they had. Jeff Bzdelik. Good job. What was I about to say? I forgot what I was about to say. See, came in from Dom 2K. Hey, man, listen, I definitely want to send a shout out to Dom 2K because the shout out that he gave my channel, it definitely helped me out. I appreciate that, man. Listen, everybody who's been watching these videos, one thing you got to say is that because I'm a new YouTuber, I'm trying to still figure out this YouTube algorithm. So anytime that you all see my videos, just even if you don't have time to watch it at that time, just hit the like button, leave a quick comment, and come back to it whenever you do have time, because it helps that YouTube algorithm that as soon as the videos come out, they see people are interested, they'll kind of push it out to other people. And like I said, if you all get a chance, if you're interested, share the videos as well. It definitely helps the channel grow. But like I say, just you all coming to watch videos and leave comments, I greatly appreciate it, man. Like I said, I love this with a passion, so it's definitely helping. It's good to see the channel growing. But Dom2K's shout out definitely gave my channel a boost it needed. So if you hear from Dom2K, man, I appreciate y'all for coming and joining the Ballaholic Nation. Like, this is what we're going to do. I mean, like I say, every Monday, every Friday, you're going to be getting videos from me, and I'm going to start doing more lives because the NBA season's here. The Lakers are a champ. Like, college basketball, I haven't touched on as much as I would like to. I'm a big college basketball. I'm a Duke Blue Devils fan. Unfortunately, my boys just got our butt kicked by Michigan State. But I'm a college basketball fan, but I'm more of an NBA fan. And the NBA to me is like a 24/7, 365-day sport. So I love that. Definitely rep Lakers all the way, man. There's no question. Since '89, I've been a Laker fan. So, like I said, Blue Devils. I'm from Durham, North Carolina, so I'm a Duke fan and a Laker fan. So, like I said, we've had some good years and we've had some down years. But yeah, those from Dom 2K, man, I appreciate that. Definitely shout out to Dom. If you have not seen his channel, please go check out Dom 2K. You just type it in Dom 2K. Check him out. I think he's got maybe 2 or 3 different channels. Great YouTube content creator, man. Love his work. And like I said, I appreciate respect him because, like I said, I didn't ask him to do that shot. He just did it from his heart. So I definitely appreciate that as well. Let's see here. What are my thoughts on Scott Brooks' coach? Now, Jamal, that's a good question because a lot of people forget in OKC that was Russell Westbrook's coach when he was winning MVPs and averaging triple doubles. It was Scott Brooks that was the coach. So I think him being that coach of the Washington Wizards, I think it's a good fit for us, man. I really do. I think people are kind of knocking this Russell Westbrook to Washington move. But as far as to answer your question, what do I think about him as a coach? I don't think he's a great coach. I think he can handle Russell Westbrook, but I don't think he's a great coach. When you had Kevin Durant, you had Russell Westbrook, you had James Harden, Serge Ibaka, and you won one finals game, you lost. You were the coach that lost a 3-1 lead. I don't think he's a great coach. Like I said, I don't. But I appreciate, HG Productions, definitely subscribe to him. You're gonna love that. Yeah, so like I said, I don't think he's a great coach, but I think I think he can maximize Russell Westbrook. That's the answer I want to give you for that question there. Let's see. Owen says, who inspired me to start doing my YouTube? I'm gonna tell you, man. Listen, this is wild. I'm gonna tell you exactly who inspired me. It's a crazy story. So I've got an 8-year-old daughter, and so one day she's playing on her tablet, and as all kids do, one day I see her looking at her tablet, and I'm seeing her watching another kid playing with toys, and I'm like, what kind of child? Why aren't you playing with? You got a whole room full of toys. Why aren't you playing with toys? You're sitting here watching another kid play with toys. So I actually started looking at the videos, and it was a kid. His name is Ryan, and he's got Ryan's Toys review or something like that. So I'm looking at his videos, and she showed me a video on there that had 1 billion views. Like, no lie, not an M, a B, 1 billion views. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm saying, hold up, this kid's got it's 7 billion people on the planet, and he's got 1 billion views. And then I started doing some research on him, found out he made like $30 million last year on YouTube. And I'm just like, okay, maybe there's something into this thing. And so then I just started to think, and I'm just like, man, trying to figure out, what's my passion? And I started thinking about saying, when I asked myself, well, what is my passion? Yeah, Ryan is a beast. My passion is talking basketball. So when I started thinking, I was like, well, listen, I'm going to always, and I've literally spent hours with my friends, on the phone talking basketball, online talking basketball. So I thought about it, I was like, listen, why not just put the camera on, hit record, and put the videos up there? I'm not, like I say, I taught myself how to do the editing. I do everything, the lighting, the sound, everything. I do it all myself. So there's no production team at all. So, but that's what got me started, was seeing how big the YouTube platform was, and then really trying to think about what my passion was, which was, like I say, talking basketball, and then trying to figure, well, since I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, and I'm willing to do it for free, let's put the camera on and see if we can make some money. So that's what inspired me. That's who inspired me to kind of get this thing started. So let's see. Do you think James Harden is next to be traded, and if so, where? I do not think James Harden is next to be traded. It will be somebody else traded in the NBA before James Harden is. The teams he wants to go to doesn't seem like they want to budge with what Houston wants. Houston wants either Kyrie Irving, because you're not going to get Kevin Durant, so you don't even think about that. They either want Kyrie Irving from the Nets, or they want potentially Ben Simmons from the Sixers. And because the Sixers just got Doc Rivers over there, they just got Daryl Morey over there, Morey wants Harden bad. But I don't think Doc Rivers is willing to give up on Ben Simmons without even get a chance to coach a young phenom like Ben Simmons. So I think you'll probably see that. We'll see if that trade happens. It'll be at the deadline where they can kind of see how does the Doc Rivers coach an MB and a Ben Simmons, how does that all work? And so I think that would be the earliest would be the trade deadline. But I honestly, I don't even think that if Houston has the success that I think they will, where they'll be a top 5 team, I don't even think Houston will do it then. I think James Harden will try to give it at least one shot in the playoffs to see how does this team work with Wall if he's able to stay healthy, Cousins if he's able to stay healthy. Now, if there's an injury over there, then they'll just blow it all up. But if those guys stay healthy, I think they'll try to give it a shot in the playoffs and try to see what they could do against the Lakers. Now that you have Woods and you have Cousins to have some size to go against the Lakers, they'll try to at least give it a shot to see what they can do. So, good question, though. Do you think Hayward signing for the Hornets was a good move? Great question. Yes and no. Yes and no. I'm going to tell you. I'll give you the no first. No, it wasn't a good move because they had to wind up waiving Nicholas Batum's contract. And I think that's going to give him like $9 million per year for the next 3 years. I think he had a $27 million contract. They waived him and stretched his contract. So it's going to give him $9 million of dead money on their salary cap for the next 3 years. Which tells me the contract they offered Gordon Hayward, they couldn't afford to pay him based on their cap salary. So you had to hurt your future cap flexibility to bring on him. So that I don't like it from that perspective. Let's say, for instance, they were able to sign Gordon Hayward into a cap salary and pay him what they paid him in 4 years, $120 million. I do think it was good signing. Reason is because who else is going to go to Charlotte? What star, what former star, what free agent of any big name is going to go to Charlotte Hornets? Now, like I said, I'm from North Carolina, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm too down on Charlotte as a city or North Carolina as a state. But ain't nobody trying to go to Charlotte Hornets. So if you got a chance to pair a veteran, a good locker room veteran, with a young star, in my opinion, in LaMelo Ball, and even a young guy like a Devontae Graham, Gordon Hayward could slide into that small forward spot and can help. He can actually help on the court as well as also show these guys how to be professionals. Remember, LaMelo's had some immaturity issues. He's a young kid, so I don't want to knock him too much, but he's had some immaturity issues, as most young kids do. So if you put some real men around him, some real leaders around him, I think that'll help him. So I like it from an on-court and off-court standpoint. It's just the contractual, paying him what they paid him, they had to overpay. Because like I say, you're not going to get anybody of Gordon Hayward's talent, even though he's nowhere near as good as he was, you're not going to get anybody of his talent if you don't overpay being in a small market like Charlotte. I just don't like the fact that they had to waive Nicholas Batum's contract to do it. That like I said, that just doesn't make sense. But good question. Say, do you root for the Hornets as well as or just the Lakers? No, I grew up a Lakers fan. Even though I was in North Carolina, the Charlotte Hornets back during that time weren't that big. They didn't really start getting really good until like it was Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson, Muggsy Bogues. But when I when I started being introduced to basketball, I was watching VHS tapes, and my stepfather was showing me the Boston Celtics and the Lakers NBA Finals. There were old finals on tapes, and I was watching this Magic Johnson on tapes, and I fell in love with the Lakers ever since then, and I've been a Laker fan ever since. Through the Cedric Sabalas and the Eddie Jones and the Nick Van Exel days, you know, before Shaq even got there, the Vlade Divac before, in those days, and I've just been around with the Lakers ever since, man. So never been a Hornets fan, but I mean, like I said, I like the young talent. I think they had one of the best off seasons. Like I said, getting LaMelo Ball, getting a Vernon Carey from Duke University, getting a Gordon Hayward. I like some of their moves, but we've got to see how they play out. They're not a playoff team, though. They're not a playoff team. Do I like football? That's a good question, and to be honest with you, I participate in a fantasy football league, but I don't watch football. I stopped watching football when the whole Colin Kaepernick situation came up, and I don't like how they blackball Colin Kaepernick. I'm not for that, and there's no. Think about this: the Denver, and this I know I'm going off a tangent, but the Denver Broncos just played a game without. They actually asked the NFL if they could have their coach come in and be a quarterback. When you got Colin Kaepernick sitting on the sideline and can't even get a role. They basically play the game without a quarterback. But he can't get a job? Listen, I don't know what's going on with the NFL, but like I say, from a fantasy football I'm a stat guy, right? I'm a stat guy. So I do real well in fantasy football, just looking off the stats and stuff like that, but I don't watch the game, so I'm not really into football like that. But I like to take some of my homeboys' money, so we have a fun time with that. Let's take a couple more questions. We're getting close to that hour mark. So we got about another 5 more minutes. So hey, listen, Clay Pro, man, I appreciate that, man. I definitely appreciate the tip. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Let's take a couple more questions. Let's see. We got, who was your team before? Who was your team before you stopped watching? Before I stopped watching? I don't necessarily. What do you mean, H-Town? I don't understand the question. Who was my team? I've only had one team, Lakers, since I was introduced to the sport, and Duke. Those are my teams. Never change. Never will change. See, how do you feel about the extension of LeBron? Coach, a great question. Come back tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm doing a video on the Lakers, and their off season and previewing their season coming up. That's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. But I'll be this is the third video in my 7-part series. So we've already done the Toronto Raptors. We just did who else did we do? We did the Raptors and we did somebody. What did we just do? I forgot who I just did a video, but we're doing this a 7-part series. We're doing a 7-part series, and the Lakers are next. Oh, the Clippers. We did the Raptors and the Clippers. And so next we're doing the Lakers. Then we're going to get into the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics. So we'll get into a couple of teams, but it's going to be a 7-part series that'll take us right up to the season starting on the 22nd. So stick around. I'm going to get into the Lakers, what I think about those moves and those extensions and contracts, and just previewing the whole situation. We'll get into that tomorrow. ZR Gaming 23. Do you like the Rockets? I like the Rockets. I like the moves. I don't know if you just came in, but I do like the Rockets. I don't think they're a contender, but I think they'll definitely be a top 5 seed in the West. HD Production says, if Zion doesn't consistently get injured, will he be a top 5 player all time? Listen, I'm going to say this, HD Production. Zion is my favorite player in the NBA today. And actually, let me also, kind of for disclosure, Russell Westbrook is my second favorite player in the NBA today. So that's probably why I don't want everybody being so hard on Russ. But Kobe Bryant's my favorite player all time. Right now, Zion and Russ are my 2 favorite players because I love the intensity. I just love their athleticism. I just love how they play, right? But that's going way too far to say Zion, to even ask the question if he could be top 5 all time. Let's let him play a full 82 games, or at least a full 72 games before we go there. I think he could definitely be a top 5 player in the NBA at some point. But you got to win championships, multiple championships. You got to get MVP. You got to do a whole lot of stuff before you get into the top 20, top 10, let alone the top 5. Who's my all-time top 5? Great question, Dylan. So, top 5 all-time. Jordan's number 1. LeBron just became number 2 of this last championship. I got Kareem number 3. I got Wilt number 4. And I got to go with the Black Mamba at number 5. Kobe Bean Bryant, R.I.P. Let's see. I know a lot of people have said that, and I agree with you. You agree with? Oh, yes, absolutely, yeah. Let's see, definitely subscribe already and always watch. I appreciate that, Coach. Definitely appreciate that. Andrew Williams says you did the Clippers. Yes, that's true. I did do the Clippers. Do I think the Pelicans will make the playoffs? Andrew, man, that question right there, that hurts me, man. Like I say, I'm a Duke fan, and I'm a Zion fan. So Brandon Ingram, J.J. Redick, who else they got over there? It's a whole bunch. That's like Duke East or Duke Midwest, whatever. It was Duke South, I think was what New Orleans would be. I don't think the Pelicans going to make the playoffs, man. I don't think they're going to make it. The West is too loaded. And Alexander, I don't want to reveal all my 8 playoff teams yet because I'm going to do a video on that, but the West is just too loaded for the Pelicans. Let me say this. I don't think they'll be a top 8 seed. Could they make the playoffs? Yes, they could, because remember, there's a 7 through 10 play-in tournament, so they could be the 10th seed and still make the playoffs. But I don't think they will have one of the best 8 records during the 72-game regular season. Do you think the Lakers will repeat? Great question, Clay. And I want to answer that question, but I got to tell you to come back tomorrow. I can't give you everything, baby. You got to come back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss it. Do you think the Pelicans could turn into a dynasty in the future? Wow. They got to win. To me, I'm going to say this. Let me say this. To me, a dynasty is a team that wins 3 championships in a 5-year span. For instance, the Lakers with Kobe and Gasol was not a dynasty. The Heatles with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, that wasn't a dynasty. They won 2 out of 4 with Miami, Kobe and Gasol. They went to 3 straight finals. We don't won 2. If you don't win 3 championships out of a 5-year span, you're not a dynasty. So the last dynasty that we've seen is the Golden State Warriors, the San Antonio Spurs, because they won from 03, 05, 07. So in that 5-year span, they won 3 championships. The Lakers with Shaq and Kobe was a dynasty. You go back to the Bulls. You go back to the Showtime Lakers, the 80s Boston Celtics, and then you go back to the 60s Celtics. That's the only dynasties in the history of the NBA. So to answer your question, I do not think the Pelicans will ever be a dynasty. Could they win a championship? They could. I like Ingram. I like Zion. I think those 2 could potentially one day be top 10 players in the league, at least top 15. I think Zion could potentially be a top 5 player in the league. But I don't think they'll ever get more than one. It's going to be hard to be a dynasty. I mean, like I said, it's going to be real hard to see another dynasty because it's just so much parity from a talent standpoint. Like, think about how many great duos we have. It's probably like 10, 15 different great duos. Talent spread out so much more now than it was like back in the 80s. It's hard to really get a lot of teams to just pile on a lot of stars. So it's going to be hard to see if they can be a dynasty. Let's see. Dynasties are built. Dynasties are built. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think the Hornets will become a powerhouse once all three Ball brothers are on the Hornets? Hey, man, listen. First of all, I got to give a shout out to LeVar Ball. LeVar Ball spoke it into existence, man. LeVar said, listen, if you believe it, if you can conceive the idea and you believe it, you can achieve it. Now listen, LeVar Ball told everybody from the first day, he said, all three of my boys are going to be in the NBA. I'll be damned if he ain't do it right. They're all in the NBA. Jello Ball got signed to the Detroit Pistons on a one-year deal. LaMelo's with the Hornets. Lonzo's with the Pelicans. I hope one day we see them all on the same team. I think it's unlikely, but I hope we can all see them on the same team. I think they'll be fun, man. They may not win no championship or anything, but I love the talent of LaMelo. I'm still a believer in Lonzo Ball. A lot of people may have jumped off the Lonzo Ball bandwagon. I still think his all-around game is solid. And I think he's going to continue to take steps to getting better. Remember, this is just his fourth season coming up, so I think he'll still take steps to get better. Jello, like I said, he's the worst of those three, but, I mean, he's a scorer, so maybe he could be a guy who could maybe one day be an eighth or ninth man in the rotation. Maybe he could even be a sixth man one day. We'll see. But I would love to see them, man. Shout out to LeVar Ball and the Big Baller brand. Yes, I agree. We got all take notes from LeVar because that's what you want a father figure to be, somebody who motivates their children, who's there, who's present for their children, who speaks greatness into their child's lives. That's what you want, man. I definitely like that. Fediwell says, can the Bucks make the playoffs? Can they? Yes. Will they? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'm doing the preview coming up on all my predictions, my picks, all of that. Stay tuned. Let's see. Do the Timberwolves have a chance to make the playoffs? They have a chance, man. They have a chance because, remember, it's a 7 through 10 playing tournament. So they could be that 10th seed. I don't think they're going to be one of those top 8 seeds, but they'll be fighting along with the Sacramento Kings, the Memphis Grizzlies, the San Antonio Spurs, the Phoenix Suns, who else? The Utah Jazz, the Dallas Mavericks. Like the West is loaded, but you could be in that 9th or 10th spot and still have a chance to make the playoffs. So they have a chance. I don't think they will, though. I don't think they will. But I like the future. They're definitely getting better. Will the Raptors be good? Yes, the Raptors will be good. I got a lot of flack from my last Raptors video, man. I want the Raptors fans out there because there's a big Raptors community to support the channel. I want y'all to know. I'm not knocking the Raptors' talent. I think they will be good. I just think the East is deep, man. The East is loaded. And now with the Wizards getting Russell Westbrook, I don't think the Wizards are going to be better than the Raptors, but the Wizards are better. So it's a lot of competition out there in the East, man. But the Raptors will be one of the top 6 teams in the East. But we got to see what they can do. Raptors need a stronger big man. I think that's the one thing. Losing Marc Gasol and losing Serge Ibaka definitely hurt the Raptors. If you haven't watched my video, I just did a preview on the Raptors. Go do maybe 2 videos ago. Go check that out, man. I talked about that because I still like them, but I'm just not as high on them as clearly as the Raptors fans are. I'm a big Blazers fan. Do you think they'll be a top 5 seed? Ooh, I like that question, HD. I'm not giving out my predictions on seeding or on where they'll be. Well, let me say this. Yes, they will be a top 5, but I'm not going to tell you where they're going to be. But I definitely have the Blazers as a top 5 team, and I think you'll actually be surprised where I place them. Do you think the Wizards will be better with Westbrook? Absolutely. Absolutely, Master Profile. The Wizards are going to be better. Russell Westbrook is the better player. He's healthy. You know he's going to be out there. You know he's going to give it his all. The level of intensity he brings, he's going to help Bill be the best builder he can be, right? Just from an energy standpoint, a hustle standpoint, a practice standpoint, he gives it his all the time. I'm not saying that Bill doesn't, but he's going to bring the best out of those young guys. He's going to teach them work ethic that they haven't seen probably by any player that they've been in the locker room yet. So Westbrook's going to definitely help them to be a better team. ZR Game, I see you asking that question. Should Harden leave the Rockets? I think I answered that before. Harden cannot leave the Rockets. He's under contract. So remember that. He's got like a couple more years left on his contract. He has to stay there unless they decide to trade him. So to answer your question, should Harden leave? Harden has no choice in whether he's playing for the Rockets. Well, he has a choice if he plays. He has no choice if he goes to another team unless the Rockets trade him. But as of right now, he's under contract with them, so he will be wearing a Rockets uniform where he put it on and actually play. What we saw Kawhi Leonard decide not to do with the Spurs, so he still has that option to not play, but I don't think he's going to do that. big time. Why you say Tyrese Halliburton's gonna suck to start? Don't sleep with Tyrese Halliburton, man. Sacramento got a nice pick there with Tyrese Halliburton, man. I don't agree with you there. He's not gonna suck to start out. I mean, like I said, I don't expect him to come in and be a star, but I don't think he's gonna suck though. Hawks will be a 5th seed. Ooh, listen. I like the Hawks. I like the Hawks, and you'll probably be surprised where I put them, but I don't put them in top 5 though. That's a little too far. But I like the Hawks. The moves getting Bogdanovich, getting Danilo Gallinari, getting Rajon Rondo, and they're going to have Clint Capella back. They're going to have John Collins back. Trae Young's going to get better. They got Cam Reddish is off the bench. They got Huerter. Listen, I like the Hawks, man. I do. Who do you think will be the best player in the draft? Andrew Williams. I did a video on my NBA draft. So check that out. But just so you can see how I ranked everybody, I did my top 5 players. But just to answer your question, LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball is my predict to be the best player out of this draft. And I think him falling from 1st to 2nd to 3rd, the Hornets got to steal, man. Let's see. Chris. I haven't seen answer Chris's question. Top 3 point guards in the East. Great question. 1 and 2 for sure, Kyrie and Russell Westbrook. Number 3, I think I've got to go. I want to make sure before I say this, but I want to say Kyle Lowry. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no. Oh, well, no, I take that back. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons still runs the point guard. Technically, he's a point guard. So if we're classifying Ben Simmons as a point guard, then I'm going Russ, Ben Simmons, and Kyrie Irving are the top 3. If we're not saying he's going to be a point guard, then because they kind of switched him to power forward last year, and we don't know if they're going to continue to run Shake Milton at the 1. So we got to see how Doc Rivers runs that. So if we're taking him out, then I would put Kyle Lowry in to be that 3rd, along with Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook. Let's see a couple more questions. Who have I not gotten yet? Let's see if we can get a new person. Miguel. I don't think I've done Miguel yet. What seed do you think the Wizards are getting? What seed do I think the Wizards are getting? I don't want to necessarily give out the seeding per se, because I'm going to do a video on actual seeding. But I do have the Wizards as a playoff team. So they will be a top 8 seed based off the records. But I'm not going to tell you exactly where. Stick around. If you haven't subscribed, Miguel, stick around. Make sure you subscribe. I've got a video coming up for you to actually lay out seed from 1 through 15. We're going to do East Coast and West Coast. We're going to lay out every single team. And then I'll be also making my predictions on, who I got going to the finals. I'm going to lay it all out. So I don't want to give up too much because I want you to stick around and come on back and see me. Let's take one more question. I got one last question. Somebody who I have not answered yet. Let's see here. Actually, no, I'm going to give Clay. Since you gave me a tip, you'll get to end us out with the last question today. And I definitely appreciate the tip that you gave me, brother. Do you think Denver will make noise this year, or did they get lucky in the bubble? Great question. First of all, there's a 2-part. I'm gonna answer that. I'm not gonna say they got lucky in the bubble, because they were probably one of the biggest teams who had a disadvantage of playing in the bubble, because they have such a good home court advantage playing that mile high and that altitude. So they were kind of at a disadvantage, like the Utah Jazz and a team like Toronto with their home court. So there were teams that were at a disadvantage by playing in the bubble. So I don't think they got lucky being in the ball. I think they just were the better team than the Clippers. But to answer your question about do I think they're going to make noise this year, yes and no. I don't like that they gave up or they lost Jeremy Grant. I don't like that. I don't like that they lost Craig. Those 2 guys are tough, rugged defenders. When you got Kawhi Leonard, you got LeBron James, when you got guys like that in the Western Conference, you need those versatile forwards defensively. And at the end of the day, man, I think they're going to make noise because I think Murray's going to take a step forward. I think Jokic can take a step forward. But I just don't I don't want to give it too much. I don't want to give it too much about the Nuggets. But I think that the young talent will get better. Michael Porter Jr., I think, is going to take another step. Bringing Millsap back, I think, was still good. But they're still missing a piece. They're still missing something. So I'm not as high on them as some others may be, but we'll get into that in some upcoming videos. He says, listen, y'all ready for tomorrow, man? Hey, listen, be here 6 p.m. sharp. I'm going to drop that video. I'm covering the Lakers. As everybody knows, I'm a LA Laker fan, so I've been looking forward to doing this video. So make sure that y'all come back. Oh, hold on, let me say, I want to answer this last question. I'm mad because I don't think I've gotten to one of yours. What's your opinion on the Bulls drafting Patrick Williams? I think they stunk it up with that pick, man. That was the worst pick. And listen, my man Jamel's on here too. He's a big Chicago Bulls fan, so I hope you still stick around to hear this. That was the worst pick of the entire first round. The fact that they drafted Patrick Williams when you could have took Obi Toppin, you could have took Denny Avdija. Man, that right there. What are the Bulls thinking? If they wanted Patrick Williams so bad, they could have traded back in the draft, picked up another asset, and still drafted. Nobody was going to pick Patrick Williams number 4, number 5, number 6. I don't know what the Bulls are doing, but I had to get it out. Jamel, I had to get you for that one. I don't know what they're doing, man. I don't know. ZR Game, I appreciate you subscribing, man. Listen, I definitely, you say Patrick Williams is a future Hall of Famer. Yeah, okay, 2K Hall of Famer. He won't be a Hall of Famer in the NBA. And you know, let me take that back. I'm not going to say that because he's a rookie, he's a young kid, and we've seen guys who surprise people, and so he could turn out to be a Hall of Famer. So I don't want to speak bad on him because he is just a young kid who's trying to live out his dream. I don't think he will, but I've been wrong before. So the best of luck to Patrick Williams and the Chicago Bulls for they got the man they wanted, that's for sure. Listen, I appreciate everybody, man, for tuning in. I appreciate all the comments, all the questions. But listen, until tomorrow, y'all be safe out there in those streets, man. General Hannibal X, and I'm out. Peace.